My name is Lucie Nezri. I'm a composer, and uh, I think that there are certain people who are able to define who they are through what they do, and there are other people who are not able to define themselves, but that maybe um, find out a little bit about who they are through other people. And so I think this is uh, how I learn about myself is just through other people and other works. I have these very early childhood memories already where I was going to this dance school where I was taking classes for ballet and also flamenco. And these were already really, really strong experiences for me. And then also I was lucky to be brought to different concerts with my family. And so there's this funny example where the very first entry of my diary as a child was this going to this concert in the mountain in a church where clarinetist and harpsichordist were playing pieces by Couperin, and so not much has changed. I feel like already as a kid I had the same taste. I still love flamenco and classical music, and so. But then I think for me, this like unpacking how music, like the unpacking how important music was in my life, took a lot of years, and it was not like a straight road, but I took many detours, and I just feel like now that make all sense, like all these memories and this very again like strong connection to music makes sense to me today, but it didn't make, or I couldn't make sense out of it for a long time. So yeah. So I remember I studied law for 5 years when I was living back to France. And there was this turning point in my life, and this one was related to the terrorist attacks, especially that we went through in Paris, where I realized, like, this is my one precious life, and if I can do what I really, really want to do, then that would be the best for me. And so what I really, really wanted to do was to make music. So I started around that time, really. I was always listening to tons and tons of music, but I think this specific event was the trigger for me to really make this decision to dedicate myself to music. So overall, I think the way I work is rather eclectic. I do many kinds of different projects but when it comes to composing, I do have a certain methodology, and the first is that I need to have a reason why to compose. So that can take just like months to find this reason, but that's how it is. And then I need to create this space or environment that is receptive enough so that I allow an idea to come to me, or I don't know how to call this. And this requires also a lot of like solitude. And uh, um, and then I get to sketch some ideas, tiny drawings that mean a lot to me. And then I get to go to my computer and to listen to a lot of tones. So I would listen to the same tones over and over again until I combine them in specific ways. And then I continue to program on my computer and generate the material of the piece through algorithmic processes. And then back to drawing on the score. There's like big curves to indicate some phrasings for the musicians. And then all these stages, I should say, are happening in silence. So I barely listen to the result of these processes. I just give the score to the musicians and sort of discover the music with them. So it's very exciting time for me after, yeah, this long, like solitary and silent time, which I enjoy very much, but to go straight into the music and the interactions with musicians and letting them free to grasp the piece in ways that make sense to them, and then discussing how to play it. And yeah, so I really love both of these stages, the silent one and then the very social and lively one. I think this is and where I get to be surprised also by my own work, which just doesn't belong to me most of the time. So that's really, I really enjoy this way of working, I would say. Most of the time, what I imagine is a little bit more um, like polished. And when it comes to live, and there's this, I get really surprised by, for instance, specific moments of dissonance or just something spicy that I had not envisioned completely, but that makes sense in the piece, and that I also really love to discover again with the musicians. And musicians are also kind of like, what is this? But I think that throughout the music, it starts to make sense. I only start to find out about my intentions when the first rehearsing process, let's say, is done. So yeah, there were just like times where I felt like, oh, I could have just erased this part of the piece, or the piece is too long. That is a recurring thing with me. Sometimes I find that it's too long. Um, but yeah, that's how I learn. So no regrets. I love, again, I really love this process, and continue to refine it, let's say, through time. Yeah. I really need to have this reason to compose, and that can take me just like months to find. And yeah, without this specific reason, I just don't do it. I just don't do it. It's as if composing is so important to me that I have to know why I do it. So that's also a reason why I'm very slow composer. I will never be someone that writes 20 pieces per year. That's not the way I function. So I think this can be a difficulty in relation to the general pace of this field. Um, yeah, it's both active and passive. Active in the sense of like continuously listening to music and being inspired by what others have done. And this is very much of a reason for me to write music, just as an homage to these other composers. But then I also feel that I need to be passive in this process. Otherwise, when it's forceful and I'm trying so hard, like never works. So I need to have this balance. Another difficulty is that I have dyslexia, and I don't know if there is research about this, composers having dyslexia and having troubles transposing things. But yeah, I'd be curious to know more about that, because it's been torture sometimes to transpose stuff in my work. So yeah, but to avoid these blocks or difficulties, I do simple stuff, like I walk a lot, I see friends, I relaxed just to the max, and while continuing to do like just small experiments, and yeah, developing endurance basically is always helpful, and reaching out for help basically also, simple stuff. Yeah. There are so many people I could mention. I will I will just start with my friends, if this is okay, in the music field. So yeah, there's Michael Winter, Catherine Lamb, um, Zainab Toraman, Thomas Nicholson, Clara De Assis, who's working with Modelo, Niran Tumba, Daniel Pilchen, Edgars Rubenis, Ernest Vilsets, Maria Raza Kudabaite, Lisa Hirsch, Kim Ho, Andres Poikens, many more in the music field. Freeman Edwards also, I could mention that. I think that as more pioneers, James Tinney and Clarence Barlow are really important to me. Another composer I would love to meet is Lawrence Dunn, who I really love his work. And yeah, I think for music-wise, that's maybe it. Just to mention a choreographer who I love, and I think is not very well known. His name is Hideyuki Yano. He was a Japanese choreographer based in France. And he did these really, really bizarre works that are neither dance pieces or music or theater pieces, but somewhere in between, very poetic and strange. And I've never seen anything like that before. And yeah, he was really an incredible artist. So yeah, people can check him out. It's worth it. I think generosity is what inspires me in all these people, and so maybe again like generosity as a human, but also in their music. And it's also, how can I frame that? Those people are really doing what they want to do. I don't hear anything like a way of being convenient to others or to this music field, or no, they all have like very unique styles and not compromising, basically. And this, I find that really inspiring and fun. And yeah, they're all a little bit like rebels, in my opinion. So yeah. So the piece is both algorithmic and not algorithmic at all. It is for ensemble and electronics, which are just sine tones. And I would say the first main concern in this piece was tuning possibilities. And so how to transition from one specific tuning to another one, which is slightly different, and how to do that as seamlessly as possible. And yeah, it also explores this notations that I've been using in the past, which is unmeasured. So where you have just like curves with melodic units that the ensemble is able to shape according to their own individual agency and also collective momentum. And so, yeah, I think that's the two big aspects of the work, tuning and then collectively playing. So first, it is meant for musicians to play. So that means that they have agency in the work. I expect them, let's say, to individually propose different durations or timbres or dynamics throughout the piece, but also at the same time listening to one another, making space for each other to play, and to surprise one another also, and the audience if possible. So that's a lot. That's a lot of agency in some sense. But I see that, and I saw that unfolding in a really beautiful way when working with Modelo. It was beautiful because they have so much respect for one another that the dynamics were beautiful to witness for me during the rehearsal processes and the concert that we already had. And, you know, after some time, you could feel that they started to play with one another. So, um, especially I think Ezekiel and Elliot, I remember them really like laughing sometimes and saying that the piece was for them a little bit like playing Guitar Hero, which I think is very accurate. So like just trying to play the notes whenever they can, like one after the other, and that is, it is actually fun, I think, and when you know really well the persons you're playing with, and that has again another dimension. So creating the piece was a ride, like so it is my first piece for ensemble, and initially it was commissioned through this open call made by the GMEA in France, in Albi, in like I think it was in April 2022 or something like that. And I had completely misread the call. I thought that we were supposed to create this piece during a 1 week residency with 10 other musicians, and that the whole thing would happen then in August. But like, so I received a positive answer for the call. I'm really glad. And then I read that I have to handle a score for the 1st of July. And was like, it was a bit crazy, and I was graduating also from my master's at the same time in sonology, so I have no idea. I mean, I was really glad to have this friend back then, Hyères who was in The Hague, and I could talk with him about my process and the piece. But I learned so much from this experience, again, like working with many instruments also that I hadn't worked before with, and yeah, and the creation itself with this first 10 musicians was also very fun, and in an environment that was very supportive. So I feel incredibly lucky to have had this experience as a first, you know, piece for ensemble. And I feel equally lucky and grateful to have had this opportunity to adapt it for Modelo. I mean, it was also a ride, like just with specific parts to adjust them for instance, this harp part to make it into a guitar part was a little bit of a puzzle, and still a puzzling experience. But I also had help from Ezekiel and Elliot. So I learned a lot from that, and same to just introduce the double bass in the piece. I'm also very grateful for Vasily's help, and again, I would say all the members of Modelo have been really dedicated to the piece, and I can think also of Jorge. So he did this in the piece. The wind players can bring some multiphonics, both some of them that I suggest and others that they can research on. And he came up with a collection of I don't know, like a lot of multiphonics based on my instructions, and this is beautiful, you know, just, and very rare. I think people in ensemble that takes so much time to um yeah, to make these kinds of propositions. I find that really great, and same with Rainier, who was uh, you know, up to experiment with both e-bowed piano and harmonium. Um, and I would say just everyone involved was, I learned so much from them. Also the string instrument in general, I'm still learning, and Ezekiel and Elliot were certainly incredibly important in making the piece happen. And so it was a super experience. Yeah. Um, you know, getting back to this, like the way I function, and like having this need to imagine the piece in silence, and now like, okay, I have uh to change this vision a little bit. And so it was a challenge for me, but then slowly it took shape. So for instance, also thinking about the differences of timbres, then I thought this worked amazingly with Modelo, and maybe um, not better than what I had as a first version, but equally interesting to me. So in the end, yeah, I was as enthusiastic as I was with the first version, and yeah, it was again super. I think that there are two things. The first is that I hope that they will enjoy how the ensemble communicate with one another, and so this playfulness. I hope this is something that is communicative for the audience, and yeah, also just finding a sense of ease um, and maybe peace throughout the piece. I mean, if I can say that, um, that would be for me a success. Yeah.